The aim of Mini Hollands was to orchestrate transformational change. People need that big shock, as far as I'm concerned.
The initial aims of the scheme was to support Boris Johnson's vision for cycling in London, to help create and stimulate a cycling revolution in London, similar to what's been seen in other key European cities, but particularly to address low levels of cycling in outer London. Waltham Forest has taken it and made it not just about cycling, but also about improved pedestrian experience too.
The idea is that the streets will be made more pleasant, more livable, there'll be less air pollution and less noise pollution.
So hear your voice loud but polite. We are not against cycling or cycle lanes, but we're against residential road closure.
I was one of the people that joined in the campaign to get it to Waltham Forest because I thought it would be a good thing. I think quite a bit of it is a good thing. I'm very much in favour of increasing cycling. I'm a cyclist myself. But what they've done is they've cut off access to anybody on this side of it, whereas our main and nearest main road is Hoe Street up the top there. We now have to go down to Palmerston Road, up to Forest Road, along Forest Road, and then turn back down before we can get back to where we would have been in 2 minutes.
So the idea of modal filtering is to maybe put some closures in at certain points, but closures that cyclists can actually ride through. It's a little bit carrot and stick. So you're saying like actually it's easy to walk and cycle, you just go straight there, but drivers, if you want to drive there, did you really need to drive there? It can actually be easier to walk and cycle there, and if you do, then you've got this slightly more annoying route to do there.
What they've done is said, right, we're going to disadvantage motorists in the hope that cycling will respond. And it remains to be seen whether it will, and I think it's unfair. And people around here are really angry about it.
I think that we as a human race need to accept that the days of being able to get in our cars and go anywhere we want, whenever we want, at any time of day are going to have to go because it's not sustainable. So I think a lifestyle change is what's needed, and that's what I think Mini Holland's trying to achieve.
It's not that people are being prevented from going places, they just have to take a different, maybe a longer route. So I would say, well, maybe that's the price we have to pay for a nicer living environment.
I tended to have a very positive attitude and anticipation until detailed plans came out. It was proposed to put in road closures on Church Hill, and the effect of this would be that traffic would be diverted to areas where, first of all, weren't in the direction that much of the time one wanted to go, and secondly, and worse, for the most congested parts of the main roads in the area are the maximum serious and killed accident spots, and which had seemed to have the maximum levels of air pollution. And air pollution, as you know, is a very major concern.
We live on a main, what was a main cut-through road between Lea Bridge Road and Hoe Street, and so our road is quieter now, which is nice. We have a young daughter, but it simply diverted the traffic from our road down onto the main roads, and walking along the main road is now really unpleasant.
As a pedestrian, the thing that concerns me the most as cyclists on the pavement, it is very dangerous, particularly for vulnerable people like small children, disabled people.
Most days I cycle to work in central London. It hasn't made that much difference for me, really. That said, my wife yesterday, she just went up to Tottenham and she was really pleased that she could go the whole way on bicycle paths without really mixing with the traffic at all. It made it a much safer and better experience.
I think the cycle lanes are not well designed because they suddenly stop in the middle of nowhere, or they're mixed up with bus routes.
The only problem with cycle paths are that really, for total safety for cyclists, they should be totally and utterly apart from any form of cars or vehicles of any description.
The road isn't wide enough for a cycle lane, 2 cycle lanes plus 2 lanes of traffic. So the cycle lane can't really be used. The reason they cycle along on the pavement is because the main roads are too dangerous. It's cycle lanes we need, not redirected traffic.
We went and measured the width of the railway cutting that runs through the village, and from the edge of the track to the fence is more than 60 feet. And we thought they could put a cycle route through that land and you could ride your bike in peace.
The jewel in the crown is the Lee Bridge Road scheme. This is an opportunity to look at the whole road, to totally re-signalise it, and obviously to put full segregated cycle lanes on both sides of the road.
The proposal of Whips Cross Roundabout actually involves abolishing the Whips Cross Roundabout. The rationale for that is that it is scary for cyclists to use it. However, it actually, in terms of much that it's supposed to do, is very effective. It also has very, very few serious accidents. Quite possibly make the roundabout smaller. It is a rather large one. Slow the traffic down even more, and that means, of course, lower pollution than you would have if you had traffic lights where motor traffic had to stop. The Dutch, I believe, are at the moment abolishing all the T junctions and crossroads they can and building roundabouts.
Nothing works better than roundabouts for shifting tons of vehicles, but as we're shifting our focus towards people and active travel, then that's a real hindrance to us.
We got something to our front door saying there was going to be a road blockage between Grove Road and Orford Road. The roads don't meet. So at some point you've got to think, are they not even reading the things they're producing here? And if you've got £30 million to make a place better for the cyclist and pedestrian, at least you'd think. You would check your work, you'd do it properly.
We have voiced concerns about some of the bottlenecks that he's creating, like in turning one-way streets into two-way, and the road layout not really being suitable for two-way traffic.
I've never met anyone who agree with Mini Holland. They always is a standing joke now, everything they talk about Mini Holland.
The 2 early schemes, Black Horse Village and Walthamstoke Village, were fully endorsed schemes with around about 20 to 25% response rate. Bearing in mind highway schemes, when we go out, we probably normally get between about 3 and a 5% response rate.
But Waltham Forest, for example, have set standards way and above for most standard highway consultations, so we've been really impressed. And the online monitoring and tracking was like, it's real cutting edge stuff.
There should have been more attention paid to the consultation process. It should have been published, it should be completely transparent, and I think that there was a way to implement it safely in order to minimise the interference caused to residents, but it wasn't done in the right way.
It hasn't been a serious attempt to find out whether people actually want this. Is this a good idea? Everything's described as an improvement. And the final questions lump together, would you like more trees? Would you like a lick of paint on the bridges? Oh, by the way, do you want your streets closed?
In terms of the correspondence that I've personally had from residents, I've had more correspondence in favour of Mini Holland than against Mini Holland, and it's not by a small margin, that's quite a significant margin.
If we consider London relative to other cities in Europe, in terms of cycling provision, London is absolutely woeful. The Netherlands, 27% of trips by cycle. In London it's 2 or 3%. And the quality of the public realm, the quality of provision for the bike is astounding.
We went and visited like 20 cities around the world, and we looked at the different ways that they've got cycling going in there. So some really established places like Copenhagen and cities in Holland, and also some places that did it quite quickly. So like a city like Seville, where they were throwing in 400 metres of cycle track a week. Also the New York approach as well, of doing it in stages. They again laid out an entire citywide cycle network in 4 years.
If you look at the good practice cities in cycling, they tend to spend around £30 per head on cycling yearly for 20 or 30 years. We've only started doing that in London for the last couple of years. So if we continue this type of investment, at least £10 per head of the population, but higher, up to £30 per head for the next 20 years, then we will have an effective environment for walking and cycling.
That's a load of rubbish there is.
Why do you think it's rubbish?
Because as the local residents ask for it. Well, it's a waste. I mean, we drive buses and going up and down, and it hassle it costs, especially when you've got emergency vehicle going along.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to get out the way, we've got to get on the curve and all that, and it's rubbish.
I think they fast-tracked it without a fault for the buses or the infrastructure of the borough.
Yeah.
And that's why we're having issues now, and it's only going to get worse.
So what do you think they should do? Do you think they should scrap it?
I suppose we have to put up with it, innit? What can we do? But we can make complaint about it. Yeah. Let our voices heard.
Mini Holland is actually affecting our business very badly at the moment. We used to have, before this Mini Holland about 37, 38 drivers. Really? Reduced it down to 20 drivers now because nobody liked it. We're still charging £4.50 because it's a quite competitive market nowadays. We can't raise the fare. At the end of the day, customer won't be happy to pay £5 or £6. It should be at least £6, £7.
It's basically stopping all of our residents from moving easily through our home areas and the roads around. Parents, have to manage their days differently now. So the movement and how much time you have as a family has been restricted.
Ideally, the traffic, people queuing in the more congested conditions will get fed up of using their cars, and then the idea is that the traffic would evaporate, or people will find other ways of travelling, or they won't make the trip. They will do something else.
I'm of an age where I'm fit and well, and I can cycle and walk everywhere that I need to go. We need people who are in situations like mine to take that more seriously.
The traffic will reduce the easier and safer and more convenient it is to get around on foot and by bike and by public transport.
Everything the Mayor has done, he owes to us, I've got to say. Because the Greens on the London Assembly were the first people to actually spot the problem of air pollution. We talked about it in 2000. And at that point, we went to Ken Livingstone and said, you absolutely have to do something about the streets, reduce traffic, clean up the air, or we'll be in line for EU fines.
You just need to make a few adjustments in your life and realise actually how easy it is to get around by bike and how good it makes you feel. And that's it, your lifestyle is changed forever.
As a cyclist, I like it because I cycle everywhere.
Have you noticed the difference in the traffic?
Not really, to be honest.
It has made the back streets quieter, it has stopped rat running, and it has made it safer for me and my daughter to walk.
I'm not a cyclist, I'm a very dedicated pedestrian and user of public transport. I would say it matters so much that I'm prepared to take the imperfections.
My local masjid, the one I pray at most of the time, the Imam of the masjid has spoken to us about it, taken our views, and he's also told us and notified the congregation about protests about Mini Holland, where most of the congregations have gone, attended these protests against Mini Holland.
No more! No more! Open up our road! Open up our road!
The council came to our office and they said, what would you think if Orford Road was pedestrianised? And we said, well, it could be okay. But they said nothing about buses using the road, and they said nothing about road closures. So some of us organised a meeting at the Asian Centre, which was nearly filled to capacity, and then from there we gradually formed into a more cohesive group.
They're trying to help businesses as well. So we work as a team. At least there's people that understand everyone's situation.
I can't run a business without a car because I'm moving large pieces of furniture. And to be told by Mini Holland that I'm no longer allowed to deliver to the front of my shop, which I've been doing for the past 24 years, doesn't seem very community spirited. I have had customers saying they won't come back to me because it's too difficult to get here.
There used to be 15 minutes outside and there was a lot more spaces. Now we have this side is deliveries, that side's car club, you can't stop there.
You put all double yellow line where customer go and they park. This is very bad for business. Or when our trolley came, there's more than 20, 40, 50 pieces, or each piece is more than 80 kg. How is possible I take 50, 60 pieces more than 80 kg from the other road?
I don't agree with Mini Holland because it affects my business. It's very difficult for bring my stuff for shop, and I'm alone here and I can carry on from next street.
Business-wise, it's not made a lot of difference because we're on the corner. Yes. Deliveries are easy. We're still okay, obviously, in business.
What they're saying is it might make it busier because there'll be more people walking past. So you know, we're just basically.
So if it's cycle lane, he must make the unloading place as well.
The history of pedestrianisation in all town centres that have tried it, and most have from the 1970s onwards, is that you have a lot of debate about the scheme before, you have a lot of people don't support the scheme, it's implemented, and then afterwards you get more pedestrians, more cyclists using the particular street. Their business does better, and then the businesses become big supporters of these types of projects.
In my 10 years living in Walthamstow village, I have had to call out the fire brigade only once, and likewise the ambulance service. The ambulance wished me off double quick with a suspected heart attack to Whips Cross A&E, shortcutting through the village back streets. If next time is the real thing, I don't fancy my chances.
Every single one of our schemes has to be approved by the emergency services. I don't know how many times we've had to say this. We cannot go forward with our schemes without their sign-off agreement, or they have no comment on our schemes. On the ambulance service in particular, actually it's not necessarily the ambulance that you need to get to someone who's in distress, it's a paramedic. And actually in London you're increasingly seeing paramedics on motorbikes. Fire engines, well, you know, it happens already. They smash through obstructions. There is a reason why fire engines are built like they are. You know, they can go through any of our modal filters in an emergency. They'll go up one-way streets or the wrong way if they're required to do so. So all of those things are dealt with.
Why I'm speaking today is because of the new style Copenhagen crossings which have been installed. Well, they're a real problem for me and for many people who are blind and partially sighted. Blind people and guide dog users don't even know when they're crossing a road.
The Copenhagen crossing is meant to give pedestrians right of way, but actually a zebra crossing gives pedestrians right of way, and everyone knows how to use it, including the motorists.
Right.
So why are they building these expensive paved roads when black and white lines would do?
There's a more blended way of looking at streets, so it's not clearly defined between traffic and pedestrians, that, you know, people are sort of going slower, looking out for each other. You're expecting pedestrians to be in the road sometimes, so you're being more careful. There's more opportunities of children playing in the street, a bit of unsupervised time away from their parents where they feel a little more independent, they can play with their friends in a safe environment, and they feel a little bit lighter and freer in themselves.
What do you think about Mini Holland?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and as a family we're all starting to cycle again, so yeah, we're looking forward to it being much easier.
How was the tour?
Yeah, it's really good, yeah, very fun.
Which one did you go on?
Silver.
Silver, okay, how long was it?
It was 14 kilometres.
So this is your first day of bike riding. Why do you think you've started bike riding?
freedom, I guess, and also he really enjoys it. So it's something we want to try and do more as a family. This is Waltham Forest Council.
Yeah.
That we have just come to have a look at the bikes that are available for people with any ability really.
Now we have some amazing infrastructure, but following that is obviously the complementary measures that we've been able to put forward, like cycle training or doctor bike mechanic sessions, or lead ride sessions. So all of that is just followed suit from Mini Holland.
My understanding is that they're going to actually close the street down here, which will certainly make it easier to run Play Street and potentially make it a nicer bit of the area, bit of the street. But I am a bit worried about the impact on areas that are already congested. It feels as if the nice areas are getting nicer, and some of the more congested areas seem to be getting even more congested.
Certainly within Orford Road and the area around here is very much more a social area. You see a lot more people out on the streets and just sitting and walking and things than there used to be.
If you're cycling along or you're walking along and you bump into someone you know, you're much more likely to stop and have a conversation. And I think that kind of connectedness that communities can then have can really, really help people.
If somebody moved into the area new, they would just accept it immediately. And in fact, this borough is now accepting a lot of people who are already cyclists.
If the aim was to get certain people out of Waltham South Village, I think that has accomplished it, because I'm thinking of moving. It kind of reminds me of stories of the Berlin Wall, or just, it's like it's making it a segregated community, and when you physically lock people in, to me it's depressing. Work colleagues, which I used to take up to the Nats, and I can't do that anymore. There's nowhere to park, and I just don't do it anymore.
There's a greater percentage of women now doing cycle training. I think it's almost 50% of those from black, Asian minority communities are actually taking up our cycle training. It's older people, it's not just kids now. So we're breaking all those glass ceilings that said actually this is all about middle class, middle-aged young men riding fast, and that's what this project's all about. Actually, it isn't.
I'd say a good 75% of the people that originally moved here, it's drove them mad that they're not here no more, they've moved out.
This borough is attracting a lot of young families because they see that it does have a nice community feel, and Mini Holland is contributing to that in a big way.
I think there's an imbalance, and I think part of that is that they may be more vocal and more prone to take action than some of the older residents.
It's been a quite positive effect with regards to the village. It's made it a little bit more exclusive. With regards to kind of Forest Road, Hoe Street, stuff like that, I don't think it's really affected the value of the properties at all. If anything, I mean, it's made it a bit more of a hinder than a help.
There are problems with these types of schemes. These areas tend to be gentrified. They're very nice places to live, but they're very expensive to buy. Poorer areas might be on the major arterials, and you may have more traffic as a result, and you do get the argument that it's leading to more carbon emissions because people are travelling further around the town centre. But I think that's a very short-term argument. Over time, the idea is that traffic volumes reduce. Ideally, even the major arterials would be improved in terms of the public realm. So it's a long-term thing. It might be 10, 20 years before everybody within the borough gets a better quality of life as a result of this initial intervention.
We have to deal with the main roads as well. The main roads have to be people friendly, they have to have crossings so that when people get off the bus they can cross to get to the other side. They've got to feel like places.
I think we have learnt that it is very, very important to consult at the very beginning and all the way through the scheme, have public community meetings, let people voice their opinions, listen to those opinions, but also be prepared to explain the benefits.
Changing schemes happens, the details anyway, but it's that keeping that overall approach and not watering it down too much.
Initially they said that it may be a possibility that it didn't work and that they would have to revert back to the whole system. But when questioned, there was no money set aside for that possibility.
No. There's no reason to do that. There's no reason to put in place a contingency to take anything out or to change anything.
I see this myself as a breakdown of local democracy, and I don't think I'm the only person who's worried by that.
Mini Holland has dominated my post bag for nearly 18 months now. I'm the Member of Parliament, so I don't have any influence over the scheme itself. It's run by the Council on behalf of Transport for London and the London Mayor. So my role is to act as an advocate. These schemes will only work with the consent of the local community. They'll only work if people are really involved in shaping them.
What should be something really positive and really fantastic has actually turned out to be quite a divisive issue. Has seemed to have brought really strong opinions and really polarised people. And that in itself is problematic, but also it means that it's quite hard to have a discussion about Mini Holland because you tend to be pigeonholed as either someone who's for it or against it, whereas actually it's a bit more complicated than that.
Frankly, what we need is a model that works. I mean, like an area approach to cycling and walking that's actually really successful. I'd love Mini Hollands in all the outer London boroughs, but someone's got to pay for that, and it is an expensive project. Although in transport terms, it's peanuts.
At the moment, people driving pay about 2.5% of TfL's income. If one even doubled it up to 5% with road charging, that would just make a little bit of difference and would make the space for making sure that we can keep public transport fares affordable, and that we can get the investment in things like Crossrail, the Crossrail 2, that are going to be needed if we're going to keep the city moving.
I would bring in the ultra-low emissions zone, tomorrow, and the charges that will then come on diesel vehicles tomorrow.
The reality of it is shutting down a few quiet roads will not save the world. Forcing car manufacturers to produce clean cars will save the world.
If you can have a battery in your home and photoelectric cells on your roof, and you can charge up the battery and your home is insulated, and if you can charge up your electric car as well, this is probably the way ahead for the future.
I'd like to keep it, but I think it needs some dramatic changes.
This Mini Holland project, it doesn't reflect the majority.
I think it's getting better and better.
They encouraged us all to buy cars, and now they want to sort of destroy us.